Reaching the age of 70 is a significant milestone, a moment in life that brings with it the gift of wisdom, reflection, and newfound clarity. It's a time when we are encouraged to pause, look back at the path we've traveled, and consider what truly brings us joy and fulfillment. For many, this stage of life comes with a profound realization. We've been carrying burdens that no longer serve us. The expectations of others, an overwhelming accumulation of possessions and commitments that weigh us down. All of these can take a toll on our happiness. Now, more than ever, is the perfect time to reevaluate and release these unnecessary burdens. By letting go, we make space for a life that is lighter, more intentional, and deeply satisfying. It's an invitation to focus on what truly matters, to embrace simplicity, authenticity, and the freedom that comes with it. In this video, we'll explore the things that no longer make sense to hold on to after 70. Each realization offers an opportunity to enrich your life and inspire a greater sense of peace and joy. Let's dive into this journey together and discover how shedding these burdens can transform the way you live. 1. Letting go of the weight of others' opinions. Throughout our lives, we often shape our actions and decisions based on what others might think, like dancers moving to the rhythm of someone else's tune. We seek approval from family, friends, and society, balancing on a tightrope of expectations. But by the time we reach 70, we begin to understand a simple truth. The only opinion that truly matters is our own. This realization feels like the gentle shedding of a heavy cloak on a warm spring day. Suddenly, you can breathe easier. Take the story of Mr. Thompson. For most of his life, he was the dependable, reserved man who always nodded in agreement at community meetings and stuck to neutral choices to avoid judgment. But after turning 70, something shifted. One day, at a neighborhood event, he surprised everyone by standing up and sharing a heartfelt story from his youth. A story full of laughter, mistakes, and lessons. The room was silent at first, then erupted in smiles and applause. That evening, he felt as if a weight he didn't even know he carried had lifted. Think of the moments you've silenced your own voice during a conversation, choosing not to share a story or insight because you feared judgment. Or recall when you passed on a long-held wish, perhaps picking up a paintbrush again, donning a bold outfit, or joining a dance class, all because you were tethered by the invisible strings of others' opinions. Picture what it would be like to wake up every day feeling as if you were finally writing your own script, free from the burden of external approval. The journey beyond 70 is an invitation to snip those strings and live fully, with the ease of a bird gliding on a breeze. By letting go of others' expectations, we reclaim our power and step into a life that resonates with genuine joy and contentment. Have you ever embraced a small act of self-expression? Like singing to your favorite song in public, or wearing a color that made you feel radiant, regardless of what others might say? Share your experience. Your story could be the spark that encourages someone else to break free from their own constraints. 2. Releasing the burden of material possessions. Over a lifetime, it's easy to accumulate possessions that we believe define our success or offer comfort. But in reality, these items often end up owning us more than we own them. The space they occupy can become a reflection of the mental and emotional weight we carry. After 70, we have the opportunity to reevaluate what we truly need. Think of that china set you've kept for decades but rarely use, or the old exercise equipment gathering dust in the basement. Decluttering not only simplifies our physical surroundings but also brings clarity and peace to our minds. True joy is often found not in the things we own, but in the little moments that bring warmth and connection. Take the story of Mrs. Ramirez, who spent years collecting beautiful antiques but found her greatest happiness in Sunday afternoons with her grandchildren, laughing over board games and sharing stories. Or think of Mr. Patel, who rediscovered joy during quiet walks at the park, savoring the simple pleasure of watching the seasons change. These moments remind us that what truly enriches our lives are experiences filled with love and presence, not possessions. Challenge yourself to pick one item in your home that no longer serves a purpose. Maybe it's that stack of magazines you intended to read, or a piece of furniture you don't really like. What would happen if you let it go? The act of simplifying can open up pathways to greater peace and joy. Number 3. Saying no to unnecessary social obligations. Throughout life, social obligations can become a source of stress. Whether out of politeness, habit, or a sense of duty, we often attend gatherings or maintain connections that do not bring genuine joy. Take the story of Mrs. Jensen, who for years felt compelled to attend monthly book club meetings, even though she lost interest long ago. The discussions felt forced, and she often left feeling more drained than inspired. After turning 70, Mrs. Jensen decided to prioritize her well-being and respectfully stepped away from the group. Instead, she began hosting small tea afternoons with just a couple of close friends, where they could chat freely and laugh without pretense. Those moments brought her genuine happiness and left her feeling uplifted. Imagine choosing to spend a quiet evening at home, watching a movie or gardening, rather than sitting through an event that feels more like a chore than a pleasure. This doesn't mean withdrawing from social life. Instead, it's about choosing meaningful interactions that uplift and nourish us. The freedom of saying yes only to moments that align with your true desires can be life-changing. Reflect on a time when you chose to skip an event and instead spent that time doing something you loved. How did it make you feel? By setting boundaries that respect your needs, you create space for more fulfilling and engaging experiences. Number 4. Embracing authentic beauty. Society often pushes us to strive for a standard of beauty associated with youth. We're bombarded with messages suggesting that wrinkles should be hidden, gray hair dyed, and signs of aging erased. However, reaching 70 offers a chance to redefine beauty, to see it as an expression of who we are and the lives we've led. Take the story of Mrs. Anderson, who spent her early years meticulously coloring her hair and applying creams to minimize the appearance of wrinkles. But one day, after her 70th birthday, she decided to let her hair grow out naturally. Friends and family were initially surprised, but soon compliments poured in about how radiant and confident she looked. Her gray hair became a symbol of her journey, resilience, and acceptance. Or consider Mr. Lee, a retired teacher whose face is marked with deep laugh lines from years of sharing jokes and stories with his students. When asked about them, he smiles and says, "Each line tells a story, and I wouldn't trade them for anything." These examples remind us that authentic beauty radiates from confidence, kindness, and embracing our individuality. Maybe you recall an elder at a community event, warmly dressed, full of stories, exuding a charm that had nothing to do with conventional beauty standards. By letting go of the pressure to conform, we open ourselves to a deeper sense of self-acceptance. Next time you look in the mirror, instead of focusing on perceived imperfections, try to see the years of experiences, lessons, and love reflected back. How might your life change if you appreciated every part of yourself as a badge of honor? Remember, the people you admire for their beauty are often those who are comfortable in their own skin and embrace every stage of life with pride and gratitude. 5. Reevaluating activities that no longer bring joy. As we age, the activities that once filled our days may lose their appeal or become more burdensome than rewarding. Think about the hobbies you once cherished that now feel more like chores, the gardening sessions that used to bring peace but now feel exhausting, or the weekly meetups with friends that have turned into repetitive obligations rather than moments of connection. Consider the story of Mr. Walters, who had spent decades tending to a large garden. While it was once a source of pride and joy, by the time he turned 73, it became a strain that took more energy than it gave back. One day, he decided to downsize, converting his sprawling garden into a few potted plants that he could easily manage from his patio. The relief he felt was immediate, and the simple act of caring for just a few plants brought back the joy he thought he had lost. Or take Mrs. Clark, who was part of a book club for over 20 years. Initially, the club was filled with stimulating conversations and friendships, but over time, it became a routine that left her feeling uninspired. After much thought, she chose to leave the club and instead started attending author talks at her local library. The change reignited her love for literature and brought her a fresh sense of excitement. Reaching 70 provides the freedom to reassess how we spend our time. If a certain activity no longer brings joy, It's perfectly okay to let it go. Instead, this stage of life invites us to explore new interests and rediscover passions that align with who we are now. Perhaps that means taking up watercolor painting, joining a book club with a new theme, or finding joy in short nature walks that require little commitment but bring peace. Take a moment to think about your daily routines. Are there tasks or activities that feel more like duties than sources of joy? What would happen if you allowed yourself to release just one of them? Embracing this shift can create space for more fulfilling experiences and open the door to new possibilities. 6. Cutting ties with toxic relationships. Relationships play a vital role in our happiness and well-being, but not all connections are beneficial. Over the years, we may find ourselves holding on to relationships that drain our energy, create stress, or bring negativity into our lives. At 70, it's time to reassess who adds value to our lives and who detracts from it. Take the story of Mr. Collins, who had a longtime friend known for his constant complaints and critical remarks. Every conversation left Mr. Collins feeling emotionally exhausted. After much contemplation, he chose to limit their interactions and spend more time with friends who shared positivity and support. The change brought him peace and a renewed sense of joy. Or consider Mrs. Rivera, who felt obligated to maintain close contact with a family member who was often dismissive and unsupportive. One day, she decided to set healthy boundaries, choosing instead to nurture relationships with friends who uplifted her. This shift made her days feel lighter and more fulfilled. Cutting ties with toxic relationships is not an act of selfishness, it's an act of self-care. Surrounding ourselves with people who value us and bring out the best in us can transform our well-being. Have you ever stepped back from a toxic relationship and experienced the positive impact it had on your life? Reflect on how prioritizing healthy relationships can open the door to a more peaceful and joyous existence. 7. Letting go of comparisons. Comparison is often called the thief of joy, and it's a lesson many only come to fully understand later in life. By the time we reach 70, we've likely spent decades measuring ourselves against others, whether in terms of career success, financial standing, or family milestones. But now, there's an opportunity to shift that mindset and embrace the unique path we've walked. Take the story of Mrs. Hughes, who always felt a pang of envy when visiting her sister's large, well-kept home. For years, she measured her happiness against that of her sister's apparent success. But after turning 70, she realized that her cozy, modest home held the laughter of her grandchildren, memories of family meals, and countless shared stories. It wasn't size or opulence that mattered. It was the love within those walls. Recognizing this brought her peace and a deep sense of contentment. Or think about Mr. Alvarez, who often compared his career to that of his friends who had climbed corporate ladders while he spent his working years as a dedicated craftsman. It wasn't until his retirement party, surrounded by people who cherished his work and contributions, that he realized how meaningful his journey had been. His path wasn't meant to mirror anyone else's. It was uniquely his. Letting go of comparisons frees us to appreciate our own lives with a newfound perspective. It allows us to recognize that happiness isn't defined by what others have achieved, but by the moments and values that matter most to us. Have you ever noticed how letting go of comparisons has changed the way you view your life? Embrace the freedom that comes from seeing your journey as enough, just as it is. Stay tuned as we continue to delve deeper into ways to cultivate a meaningful, lighter life after 70. Reaching 70 is a time to embrace the wisdom of your years, release burdens that no longer serve you, and focus on what truly matters. By letting go of societal expectations, unnecessary possessions, draining obligations, and toxic relationships, you create space for joy, fulfillment, and peace. Remember, life is meant to be lived authentically, with appreciation for the path you've walked and excitement for what lies ahead. Thank you for joining us on this journey. If you found inspiration in these reflections, consider sharing your own stories or thoughts in the comments. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and stay with us as we continue to explore ways to make life after 70 truly enriching and meaningful. Until next time, take care and embrace every moment with gratitude.